Carter Vaughn didn't expect to become a hero that morning. He was just trying to get his daughter to school on time. "Rosie, come on, baby. We're gonna miss the bell," Carter called, slinging her backpack over his shoulder as he carried her down the stairs of the small two-bedroom apartment. The rent was 3 weeks late, the heater had gone out again, and he still hadn't heard back from the mechanic shop about extra hours. "I can't find my shoe," Rosie shouted from the bathroom. "Then wear the sparkly ones," he said, exasperated but grinning. "You'll start a trend." They rushed out into the cold morning, Carter's beat-up truck groaning in protest as he turned the ignition. His life was a constant game of catch-up between bills, work, and raising Rosie alone after her mother walked out 2 years ago. He didn't notice the black SUV parked by the crosswalk until the screaming started. A boy maybe 6 or 7 was standing in the middle of the road, frozen as a speeding car tore around the corner. His small backpack had fallen, and he was trying to retrieve it. Carter didn't think. He threw the truck into park, leapt out, and sprinted toward him. "Hey, kid, move!" But the boy didn't flinch. Carter lunged, grabbing the boy and diving onto the sidewalk just as the car screeched past, horn blaring. The boy burst into tears. Carter held him close, heart pounding. "You're okay. You're okay, I got you." A woman's frantic voice broke the chaos. "Riley." "Oh my God, Riley." Carter looked up as a stunning woman in a long beige coat and heels rushed toward them, her face pale and panicked. She dropped to her knees, pulling the boy into her arms. "Mom," Riley sobbed, clutching her. She was shaking, holding him like she was afraid to let go. Carter stood, brushing off his jeans, trying not to stare. She looked like someone out of a magazine, sleek, elegant, and entirely out of place in this neighborhood. "Are you okay?" she asked Carter breathlessly, her green eyes locking with his. He would have thank you so much." "I just did what anyone would do," Carter said, his voice rough. She looked at him like she wasn't convinced. "Not everyone would throw themselves into traffic for a stranger's kid. I've got a kid of my own, I get it." She blinked like she hadn't expected that. "I'm Carter," he added, awkwardly brushing hair out of his eyes. "And that's Rosie." "We were on our way to school." Rosie peeked out from behind the truck, clutching her glittery backpack. "Is the boy okay?" Riley sniffled, nodding. "I'm okay," he said, his voice still shaky. "He saved me." Carter crouched down to Riley's level. "You gotta look both ways, little man. The street doesn't care how fast you run." "Riley's usually careful," the woman said, standing up again. I turned around for 1 second and then, Carter saw the guilt in her eyes. He knew that feeling too well. "I'm Morgan," she said after a moment. Morgan Jameson. That name should have meant something to him, but it didn't. He just nodded. "Nice to meet you." They stood there awkwardly until Morgan said, "Can I take you both for breakfast, please? It's the least I can do." Carter hesitated. He had work in 30 minutes and no gas in the truck, but Rosie tugged his sleeve. "Can we, Daddy, please?" Morgan smiled warmly at the girl. "I know a place with the best strawberry pancakes." Carter finally shrugged. "All right. But only if I get bacon." Morgan laughed, and it was the first real sound of joy he'd heard all week. The little cafe Morgan picked was 5 times nicer than anywhere Carter had ever been, with white marble tables and fresh tulips in glass jars. He tried not to gawk at the prices on the menu. She didn't even glance. "So, what do you do, Carter?" she asked, sipping her cappuccino. "I'm a mechanic," he said, cutting Riley's pancakes for him. "Well, mostly I pick up side jobs, whatever pays. Single dad?" she asked gently. "Yeah, since Rosie was 4, Morgan's eyes softened. "You're doing a great job. She's amazing." Rosie beamed. "Daddy fixed my scooter all by himself," Morgan laughed. "Of course he did." "What about you?" Carter asked. "You from around here?" She hesitated. "Not exactly. I'm in town for work. Temporary project," he nodded, not wanting to pry. "Well, you've got a brave kid, and great taste in pancakes." She smiled again, but this time it lingered. "You're very kind, Carter." It was strange. Most women barely looked at him twice. But Morgan wasn't just polite, she was looking at him like she saw something more. He didn't know her story, but part of him wanted to. After breakfast, Carter insisted on paying his half. Morgan didn't argue, but when he walked out to the truck, she followed with a card in hand. "If you ever need anything," she said, "I mean it." "You saved my son." He took it, barely glancing, then shoved it in his pocket. "Thanks," he said, "but I think we're good." She didn't push, just nodded. Maybe we'll see you around. They didn't exchange numbers, no promises, just a strange kind of connection that neither of them could explain. It wasn't until Carter got home and pulled the card from his pocket that he noticed the logo in the corner, Jameson and Royce Luxury Real Estate. He frowned. Underneath the name, in gold lettering, Morgan Jameson, CEO, his gut twisted. That explained the shoes. The SUV. The calm confidence she carried like a second skin. She wasn't just wealthy. She was a millionaire, and he'd just wiped syrup off her son's nose with a paper napkin. Great, he muttered, tossing the card on the counter. People like her didn't fall into people like him. But as he cleaned up Rosie's cereal bowls and folded laundry, he kept thinking about her smile. And for the first time in a long while, he caught himself wondering. What if 3 days later, Carter was under the hood of a dented minivan, sweat dripping from his brow despite the morning chill? The garage was quiet, save for the clank of wrenches and the low hum of her radio in the corner. He hadn't thought about Morgan since the morning at the cafe, at least, not actively. But her face had a way of resurfacing when he least expected it, like when Rosie asked for pancakes again, or when he drove past that same crosswalk. Carter, Dave, the shop owner, called from the entrance. "You've got a visitor." Carter wiped his hands on a rag and stepped out, expecting a parts delivery or maybe someone asking about a tire rotation. Instead, Morgan stood at the edge of the lot, wearing jeans and boots this time, her hair pulled back in a loose braid. She looked less like a magazine cover, more like someone who belonged on a hiking trail, still out of place but in a different way. "You lost again?" Carter asked, tossing the rag onto a workbench. "I was hoping you'd say yes," she said, walking closer. "But no." "I'm here on purpose." He raised an eyebrow. "Something wrong with your car?" "Not today, though I wouldn't be surprised if it finds an excuse tomorrow." He crossed his arms. "So why are you really here?" Morgan hesitated, scanning the garage like she was trying to figure out how to say something that didn't sound rehearsed. "Riley's been asking about you," she said finally. "He drew a picture of you in the truck, with flames on the side." Carter huffed a quiet laugh. "He's got good taste. I was wondering if you and Rosie might want to come to the museum with us tomorrow. They've got a dinosaur exhibit, big teeth, loud animatronics, very educational." He reached for a socket wrench, pretending to inspect it. "You don't owe me anything." "I know that," she said, a bit sharper this time. "I'm inviting you, not out of guilt, because I want to." Carter said nothing for a long moment. Then, "Rosie's off school tomorrow." "If you're serious, she'd lose her mind over dinosaurs." Morgan's face lit up and it hit him harder than he expected. "Great, I'll text you the details." "I don't have a fancy phone," he said. "Just call the landline or stop by." "Landline," she repeated, smiling. "You might be my only friend with one of those." "I'm not sure we're friends," he said dryly. Her gaze held his. "Not yet." The next morning, Carter made sure Rosie wore her favorite overalls, the ones with the tiny stars embroidered on the pockets. He combed her hair into 2 neat braids, and she bounced on the balls of her feet while he tied his boots. "You think there'll be a T-Rex?" she asked. "If there is," he said, grabbing his coat, "we're running the other way." Morgan met them at the museum entrance. She was already holding Riley's hand, and both kids darted toward each other like it had been weeks instead of days. Carter hung back while Morgan paid for the tickets, smoothly bypassing the line with a quick nod to a museum employee. He didn't miss the way her card shimmered metallic gold as she handed it over. She caught him watching. "I donate to their education program," she said. "It's a good cause." He nodded and said nothing. Inside, the kids ran ahead, shrieking with laughter as they pressed every button on the interactive displays. Morgan followed beside Carter, her shoulder brushing his once as they turned a corner. "Do you ever take days off?" she asked. He glanced at her. "Only when I can afford to. Must be exhausting." "It is what it is." Morgan looked at a fossil display, her expression unreadable. "I grew up thinking money fixed everything. It doesn't." He didn't respond. What could he say that wouldn't sound bitter? They reached the giant animatronic T-Rex just as it let out a mechanical roar. Rosie and Riley screamed in delight, hugging each other before running to the next exhibit. Carter leaned against the railing. "They're good together." Morgan nodded. "Riley hasn't had many friends his age. He's had a hard time with the move." Where were you before? Chicago, she said. But I grew up in Maine. My father runs the company from New York now. Company, Jameson and Royce, she said, watching him carefully. My grandfather started it. We develop luxury properties. Hotels, resorts, private estates. Carter whistled low. That's a lot of commas, she laughed. Yeah, it is. So what's someone like you doing in a place like this? I'm overseeing a new development outside of town. It's temporary. I'm not planning on staying. Carter nodded slowly. Figures? Morgan turned to him. Does that bother you? Why would it? We're just two people watching a fake dinosaur. Don't do that, she said, her voice softer now. Don't pull away just because I have a different zip code. It's not about that. Then what is it about? He looked at her, really looked at her. You're temporary, Rosie and I, we're not. They stood in silence, the sounds of kids laughing and machines whirring around them. Then Rosie ran over and tugged Carter's sleeve. Can we get ice cream? They have dino-shaped sprinkles. Morgan's eyes lit up again. I'm buying. Carter started to protest, but Morgan held up a hand. Let me do this, not because I feel obligated, because I want to. He hesitated, then nodded. They made their way to the cafe, the kids skipping ahead. Morgan leaned in slightly, her voice low. I'm not asking for your future, Carter. I'm just asking for a little more time. He didn't answer right away, but something shifted in his expression, something open, if only a crack. Okay, he said. A little more time. Morgan smiled, but this time she said nothing at all, and neither of them looked away. Carter adjusted the strap of Rosie's backpack as they stepped into the modest brick building that housed the community center. A new after-school program had just started: free tutoring, art supplies, and warm meals. It was the kind of thing he never would have signed up for a year ago, too proud, too stubborn. But Rosie had started asking questions about her classmates' tablets and dance classes, and he'd decided his pride could take a backseat. He helped her hang her coat, gave her a quick kiss on the forehead, and turned to leave only to freeze when he saw Morgan walking through the double doors, her heels replaced by sneakers, her coat traded for a soft navy sweater. Riley spotted Rosie from across the room and ran to her, the two of them disappearing into the art corner. I didn't think I'd see you here, Carter said, holding the door open for her. I signed Riley up last week, Morgan replied. He's been asking to come every day since. I guess the glitter glue is working its magic. So you're just dropping him off, she tilted her head. I volunteer on Thursdays. They needed someone to help with reading. I figured I could spare the time. Carter narrowed his eyes slightly. Why not? He shook his head, stepping outside with her. You could spend your Thursday evenings at wine tastings or rooftop lounges or wherever it is people like you go. Morgan gave him a look. People like me, he exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. That came out wrong. No, it didn't. Her tone wasn't sharp, but it held weight. You've decided I live in a different world, so any time I step into yours, it's got to come with strings or guilt. You don't think there's a difference between our worlds. Of course there is. But I'm not asking you to pretend they're the same. I'm asking you to stop treating it like it's a wall. Carter didn't reply. Instead, he watched the sun sink low behind the rooftops, casting amber light across the cracked pavement. Morgan's voice softened. I'm not trying to fix your life. I'm just trying to be part of it. He studied her carefully. What happens when your project's done, when you go back to wherever your real life is? She looked surprised. You think I don't want to stay? You said it yourself, it's temporary. That was before. Before what? She held his gaze. Before I met you. He looked away, jaw tight. You don't know me, Morgan, not really. Then let me. He shook his head. People like you don't stick around when things get hard. You say you want real, but when real means bills and broken trucks and hospital forms, you'll leave. I stayed when Riley's father didn't, she said quietly. I know what hard looks like. Carter turned to her slowly. What happened? She took a breath. We got married too young. I thought love would fix everything, but he didn't want to be a father, not really. When Riley was 3, he left. No warning. Just a note on the counter and an empty closet. Carter's shoulders dropped. I'm sorry. I'm not, she said, her voice steady now, because it forced me to become someone better, someone Riley could count on. He nodded, the anger in his chest fading. Rosie's mom left too, said she wasn't built for motherhood. Just packed up and went. Did she ever come back? Not once. Morgan looked down at the sidewalk. Then maybe we're not so different after all. They stood in silence, the weight of their shared past settling between them. Then Morgan asked, "Are you working tomorrow night?" "No." "Why?" "There's a fundraiser at the hotel. It's for the community center. I got them on the invite list last minute. You should come." Carter let out a dry laugh. "I don't exactly own a tux. I didn't say it was black tie. I don't own anything that doesn't smell like motor oil. I'll take care of it." He looked at her, eyebrows raised. "You're gonna dress me now, if it gets you in the door. And what if I say no? Then I'll ask again." That made him laugh, an unguarded, real sound. "You're persistent. I'm interested." Carter paused, then said, "I'll think about it." That night, after Rosie was asleep and the dishes were done, Carter opened the envelope Morgan had slipped into his coat pocket. Inside was a simple invitation card and a receipt from a tailor on Main Street. "Paid in full." He stared at it for a long time, then set it aside and sat in the worn armchair by the window. He could still smell her perfume faintly on the coat. It wasn't expensive or overpowering, just warm, familiar. He didn't know what tomorrow night would bring, but for the first time in years, he wasn't bracing for disappointment. He was considering possibility. Carter adjusted his collar with stiff fingers, the crisp white shirt unfamiliar against his skin. The suit had been tailored to fit him perfectly, charcoal gray, sleek lapels, subtle stitching, but he hadn't been able to shake the feeling that someone would spot him for the fraud he felt like the moment he stepped into the hotel lobby. He didn't belong here. The chandeliers overhead glittered with 1,000 tiny lights, illuminating the grand ballroom in warm gold. Waiters in black vests glided between marble columns, offering trays of champagne and canapés. A live string quartet played softly near the fountain in the center of the room. He tugged at his cuff, then he saw her. Morgan stood near the far end of the ballroom, her dress a deep navy that caught the light with every movement. Her hair was swept to the side, revealing a line of pearls along her neck. She was laughing at something an older woman said, but the second her eyes found him, the laughter faded to something softer, something just for him. He walked toward her, feeling the weight of 100 gazes. She met him halfway. "I almost thought you wouldn't come," she said, her voice low with something between relief and admiration. "I almost didn't," he admitted. "You clean up well. I feel like I broke into someone else's life. Then they're lucky you did." Before he could respond, a man with salt and pepper hair joined them, offering a quick handshake to Morgan. "There you are, I've been looking for you." "We need to finalize the donor list." Carter started to step back, but Morgan reached for his hand. "In a minute." The man blinked at him, clearly confused. "And you are Carter Vaughn," he said, straightening his shoulders. "Friend of Morgan's," Morgan added, "the one who saved my son's life." Recognition dawned in the man's eyes. "Ah, you're the mechanic." Carter's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "That's right." The man gave a curt smile before turning back to Morgan. "I'll check back later." As he walked away, Carter muttered, "Nice guy." "He's on the board," Morgan said. "Not known for his warmth. You didn't have to introduce me like that. I wanted to. You could have just said friend." "I said exactly what I meant." She led him to a quieter corner of the ballroom where the noise of conversation faded beneath the swell of music. He looked around, taking in the crystal vases, the polished marble, the way every surface gleamed like it had been touched by sunlight. "This place makes my entire apartment look like a supply closet." Morgan leaned against the railing beside him. "You think I care about that? I think you don't understand what it's like to wonder if the rent's gonna clear." She turned to face him fully. "You're right, I don't, but I do know what it's like to lie awake worrying about someone you love. To feel like everything rests on your shoulders, and if you slip, the whole world falls apart." He said nothing, but his eyes stayed on hers. "I'm not asking you to step into my world, Carter," she said. "I'm asking if you'll let me into yours." He exhaled slowly. "I don't know what that looks like. We figure it out, day by day." He reached for her hand, surprised at how steady his voice was. "I don't have much to offer. I can't fly you to Paris or buy out a restaurant." "I don't need Paris," she whispered. "I need real. I need someone who doesn't care what my last name can buy." They stood like that for a moment, two people from different planets, trying to build something on shared ground. Then a voice broke through the crowd. "Mom," Riley came running, his clip-on tie askew, his cheeks flushed from excitement. Rosie was close behind, holding a red balloon she must have charmed from one of the event volunteers. "You said there'd be dancing," Riley said breathlessly. Morgan laughed. "There is. It's starting now." Carter stepped back instinctively, but Rosie grabbed his hand and tugged. "Come on." "I don't dance," he said. "You do now," Morgan said, her eyes gleaming. The string quartet transitioned into a soft, lilting melody. Carter let Rosie lead him to the edge of the dance floor where other families had started to gather. Morgan joined them, taking Riley's hand. The four of them moved in a slow circle, laughing as the kids twirled beneath their arms. Something shifted in Carter's chest, a quiet, persistent warmth that pushed back the years of loneliness, the weight of shouldering everything alone. He looked at Morgan. She met his gaze, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she said, "I'm not going back to New York," he blinked. "What?" "The board wanted me to return after the deal closed, but I told them I'm staying. The community center needs more funding. I want to expand it. Build housing for single-parent families, and I want to be here for Riley, for you, for this. You're serious." "I'm not walking away from something real just because it wasn't what I expected." Carter swallowed hard. "What about your company?" "I'll still run it, just not from a high rise." "They'll adjust." He didn't know what to say, how to thank someone for choosing his messy, imperfect life over everything sleek and easy, so he said the only thing that mattered. "I want this too." Her hand found his, fingers threading together. Later that night, they walked out of the ballroom with their kids asleep in their arms, Rosie cradled against Carter's shoulder, Riley curled into Morgan's. The valet brought around her sleek black SUV, and for once, Carter didn't feel like it was a chasm between them. He opened the back door, gently placing Rosie inside. Morgan stood beside him, watching. "I don't need a fairy tale, Carter," she said softly. "I just want a home that feels like this." He closed the door quietly, then turned to her. "Then let's build it together." She leaned in, her lips brushing his. It wasn't a promise made in a ballroom or under a chandelier. It was made in the quiet space between two people who had lost and loved and finally found something worth holding on to, and neither of them planned to let go. The front porch light buzzed overhead as Carter leaned against the railing, watching Rosie and Riley chase fireflies in the small front yard. The modest house on the edge of town still had peeling paint and a crooked mailbox, but it was theirs now. The last 2 months had changed more than just his address. Inside, Morgan was unpacking boxes in the living room, barefoot, her sweater sleeves rolled to her elbows. She looked up as Carter stepped in, brushing her hair behind one ear. "We still can't find the coffee mugs," she said. "But I did locate the pasta strainer and 3 different remotes we don't own." Carter laughed, tossing his keys on the counter. "Guess we're ordering pizza again." Morgan crossed the room and slid her arms around his waist. "I'm not complaining." He rested his chin lightly on her head. "You good?" She nodded against his chest. "Better than I've been in a long time." The move had been quiet. No press, no headlines. Just a sold townhouse in the city, a few careful conversations with her board, and a decision she'd made without hesitation. She'd bought the house under both their names, but hadn't made a show of it, just slid the paperwork across the table one night and said, "Let's build something that lasts." Carter had stared at the deed for a long time before signing. Not because he doubted her, but because, for the first time, he didn't doubt himself. Outside, Rosie's giggle rang through the air. "Daddy, look, I caught one." He stepped out onto the porch just as she held up her tiny jar, a golden speck flickering inside. Riley was beside her, eyes wide. "Can we keep it?" Riley asked. Carter crouched down. "Only for a little while. Fireflies are happier when they're free." Morgan joined them on the steps, her hand slipping into Carter's. "That goes for people too." Later that evening, after the kids had gone to bed tucked in with promises of pancakes in the morning and one more chapter of the space adventure book, they'd started. Morgan padded barefoot into the kitchen, where Carter was wiping down the counter. She leaned against the doorway. "I spoke to Janet at the center." He turned, drying his hands. "Yeah, she wants me to join the board. Said my grant helped them secure a second building." "You gonna do it?" I told her yes, but with a condition. He raised a brow. "That we add a job training program. For parents, single or not everyone has someone to lean on. Carter crossed the room and rested his hands on her hips. You're changing lives already. She looked up at him, smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. So are you. You just do it with socket wrenches and duct tape. He kissed her slowly, deeply, the kind of kiss that didn't ask questions, just answered them. When they broke apart, Morgan didn't move away. I never thought settling down would feel like this, she said quietly. Not boring, not safe, just… Right, he brushed a thumb across her cheek. You're not settling, you're choosing, she exhaled. I'm choosing you. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in the kind of silence that only came with understanding. The next morning, they woke to the sound of rain tapping gently against the windows. Rosie and Riley tiptoed into the room just after sunrise, crawling between them with sleepy grins and cold toes. Carter pulled the blanket tighter around all four of them, and Morgan laughed softly when Riley's elbow jabbed her side. I guess this is our new normal, she said, voice muffled against the pillow. Carter kissed her temple. I wouldn't change a thing. By the time the rain stopped, they were halfway through pancake batter, the kids in aprons too big for them, flour dusting the kitchen floor like snow. Carter turned the radio up, and when Morgan spun him by the hand and pulled him into a clumsy two-step in front of the stove, he went willingly. Later that week, they hosted a backyard picnic for the neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just folding chairs, lemonade and hot dogs over a borrowed grill, but the laughter was real, and the kids ran barefoot in the grass until the sun dipped low. Morgan sat beside Carter on a worn blanket, her head resting on his shoulder. Do you ever think about how we got here? She asked. He chuckled. Every time I see a crosswalk. She nudged him with her knee. I mean it, if that car had been half a second faster, but it wasn't, he said gently. And you were meant to find me. She looked at him, eyes full of quiet certainty. I was. Carter reached into his pocket, pulling out something small, a delicate silver ring, simple, elegant, and unmistakably her. Morgan stared at it, eyes wide. Is that… Yeah, he took her hand, sliding it onto her finger. I know we never talked about timelines or traditions, but I want you to know this is forever, not just the house, not just the kids, us, her voice caught. Are you proposing? I'm telling you, he said, that I want to grow old beside you. I want to fix leaky faucets and argue about paint colors and watch our kids graduate. I want all of it. With you. Morgan nodded, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Then yes. 1,000 times yes. They kissed under the open sky, surrounded by the quiet hum of summer and the scent of grilled corn and lemonade. The children danced barefoot to the sound of an old radio on the porch, and the neighbors clapped when someone popped open a bottle of sparkling cider. It wasn't a mansion, it wasn't a gala, it was better. It was everything they had never known they needed, and it was theirs. Forever.